Hello, and welcome to another edition of Storytelling on Orchard Street. I'm your host, Pete Salamita. We're in the podcast studios of P&T Knitwear Bookstore, 180 Orchard Street. It's a great bookstore, lots of genres of books to check out. There's a cafe in the back. You can have a nice drink. There's places to sit. They have events here, so do come down. Today's guest is Jerry Johnson. Jerry is a poet and a spoken word artist whose poetry has appeared in a variety of literary publications worldwide. Jerry is the author of 3 poetry collections: A Coldness, published by Finish in Line Press; Poets Should Not Write About Politics by Evening Street Press; and Bad Fruit by Gnash and Teeth Press, which comes out July 8th, 2025. His poetry collection, Poets Should Not Write About Politics, was a selected winner of the Evening Street Press 2020 Sinclair Poetry Prize, and his poem, The Apology, was nominated for a Pushcart Prize in Fiction. Is what I'm trying. Oh, I'm sorry. I went into what you were trying to tap into. We're going to get to that, but here's Jerry Johnson.
Hello, everyone.
So we met, I guess, a year or two ago. I forgot, at the great poetry reading series that was put on by Great Weather for Media.
Yes.
I was reading. George was the host that day, but you were a host also.
Yes, I was one of the rotating hosts.
Cool.
For Great
Maybe
Weather
just
for
a little
Media.
closer to the mic. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So how long did you do that? I'm just curious. I'm going to talk about a lot of other things here, but just that's how I know you. So let's start off with that.
It started in 2020 during
Nice.
COVID.
Okay.
When COVID came, of course, there were no
In-person readings.
public,
Yeah.
no public readings, and we started. The Great Weather started doing their readings on Zoom,
Right.
and they invited me to be one of their co-hosts,
Okay.
and I've been their co-host up until early last year when
Right.
they stopped the series.
Yeah. A lot of people were sad to see that go. It was a good series, a good location for it too.
It
Good room.
was.
A good room. Yeah.
It was.
Yeah.
So I miss it.
Yeah.
But, other opportunities will come.
Of course, of course. So let's, before we get into your writing, which is fantastic, and can't wait to hear more about your new book that's coming out. This is the first leg of your tour to promote it. But I got to, before I talk to you about your background, I was just interested. Poets should not write about politics. Did you write about politics in the book?
Yes, I did.
Oh, okay.
But what I did in Poets Should Not Write About Politics, I would write very strong pieces. For instance, I would write a piece titled, I wrote a piece titled, Although I Should Not Have To,
Right.
which was a very strong political piece. And then I followed it with a poem about bison,
Okay.
and then followed that with a poem about kittens.
Huh, interesting.
And then I went back to some of my raw material with a poem called It's 1938 Again.
Wow. Oh, right. I get it. Yep. All right.
And so I alternated back and forth between softer pieces,
Right, and
pieces
hard-hitted ones.
and pieces
All
that are
right, interesting.
hard-hitting.
Okay, so we'll talk more about that and your beliefs on what poetry should stand for or should do or its main role. But first, let's talk about your background. Are you a Southern guy?
Born and raised in South Carolina, Greenville, South Carolina,
Right.
until I was 10, and grew up in Columbia, South Carolina.
Right. I had a feeling because I noticed you travel a lot south.
Yes,
Are you
I-
going to visit family when you're traveling mostly, or
Actually, I've
your
already
roots?
My story is like this. I was the company I work for. The headquarters is in New York, and I've worked in South Carolina. Someone from New York discovered me in South Carolina in 1992 and brought me up to New York.
Discovered you in what way?
My job, my work.
Okay.
I work in information technology.
Oh, I see.
That's my day job.
Okay.
And they liked the way I carried myself, and they
Interesting.
liked my project management skills.
Uh-huh.
And they asked me to say, "Hey, you ever thought about working in headquarters?"
Huh.
I'm like, "I've been asking for
Right.
a while."
Okay.
And he said, "I'll have my guy call you." A week later, his guy did call me,
Nice.
and we had a telephone interview.
So that was to here, to New York.
That was here to New York. Yeah.
Was that the first time you had been in New York? Or?
No, I came to New York first time in 1990.
Okay.
1990, I came up to watch a friend of ours make his debut in music.
Right.
And And so I took the train, the Amtrak train, from Columbia, South Carolina, to New York City.
Right.
It was, and it was very. I like adventure, and so it was very adventurous.
I bet. So you grew up in South Carolina. What was your family life like? Because sometimes I think how we grow up informs or could have an impact on why we write, what we write about. So, growing up, did you like writing as a kid, or is it something that came up later? Did you study it, or is it just a passion that you developed?
I liked reading as a kid.
Okay.
We in Greenville, when kids, for Christmas they got bikes and roller skates.
Okay.
The only thing my parents could get for me were books.
Uh-huh.
And I read.
Meaning that's all they could afford, or
That's all they could afford.
Were they?
And I don't think they bought them. I think those books were given to them.
All right. Right.
And I took full advantage of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I read every book that was in the house.
All right.
I used to read.
Were your parents, readers, or they had that kind of interest, or they were interested in the arts at all, or?
My mother, more so than my father, was. She read a lot.
Right.
And my mother was interested in music. My mother could sing.
Oh.
And I had an uncle who sounded just like Sam Cooke when he sang.
Wow. That's one of my favorites. He could sing a phone book and it would sound great. Right. So, because I'm always interested in that. My parents were not that. I mean, my mother did read, but it didn't go beyond that. And my father was just somebody who worked his whole life. I mean, they grew up in the Depression, so they didn't have time for chasing that kind of stuff.
My father could draw.
Mm-hmm.
I have no skills when it comes to
Me neither.
visual arts.
Right.
But he could draw.
Yeah.
And he did a good job at that. He built the best looking snowmen because in Greenville, South Carolina, we had a lot of snow in Greenville compared to Columbia, because Greenville was called the Piedmont.
Okay.
We're at right below the mountains.
Oh, okay.
And so Greenville gets more snow than the other cities of South Carolina.
Okay.
And I saw my dad take a big tire and then pile the snow up around the tire and built the bottom and then the base. The base and then the middle part. And he was like an artist doing a sculpture.
Right. Nice.
And so he did have visual art skills.
Right. Okay. Right.
And his drawings were good.
Did you have any other, besides reading and then eventually writing, did you like to sing, or you ever play an instrument, or, dabble in the arts? Some writers and poets do a little bit of different things.
Well, I rarely mention this, but when I was in high school, I used to sing on a band. I was lead.
I mean, you have a nice voice, a talking voice anyway.
I was front man for a band.
Oh, cool. What kind of a
my
band?
mother's chagrin. We drifted between soul and funk.
Right.
And a little rock.
Okay. Covers or?
Covers. All we did was covers.
Okay, name a few.
Isley Brothers. Isley Brothers. I used to do
early 60s.
Early.
They were great. That's a name you don't hear too much.
Right.
And they lasted a really long time through different, started off soul and became more funk, and then disco, and they spanned the years, and it didn't their kids perform, or I don't know. They were around a long time.
They were around a long time.
Yeah.
My mother put me into this college program where you're in high school, but you go to college during the summer. You stay on campus.
Right.
It was called Upward Bound. And
what college was this?
Allen University.
Okay. What'd you
in Columbia,
major?
South Carolina. This was just a school, a program. I was still in high school.
Oh, I see.
And I stayed on campus during the summer, and I went to class and got college credit for those years. But they had a talent show, and one of my buddies, we decided to sing Bill Withers' "Lean on Me."
Oh, that's a great song.
And he opened up to sing the first half, and then I started singing the second half of the song, and the whole auditorium just stood still.
Do you know the background of that record?
No.
Somehow he got connected with Booker T. Jones.
Oh.
He got introduced to him, of course, from
Booker T and the MGs.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
And somehow he played some songs for him on his guitar, and it just blew Booker T away. He called up people, called up friends, including Stephen Stills, and booked a recording studio that night. And that's how his first album came out. I just love that story.
That's
Because to me,
I
Booker
did
T
not
is
know
a
that.
hero. I mean,
Oh, Booker
yeah.
T. I haven't heard that. I haven't heard that in a while.
No, he's a hero. He's still around, and he had such an imprint on Southern soul.
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
So
Sorry.
finally, my friend said, "Jerry, why don't you just sing the whole song?"
Okay.
And then all the other guys that were in the talent show asked if I would come in background for them.
Okay.
And the talent show happened, and some people from a band were there, and they pretty much drafted me.
Right. Okay.
Without my permission. They said, "You're singing for us."
So what kind of gigs did you do? Like
We went to clubs, a lot of
yeah.
clubs. I was like 17 years old.
They had to sneak you in.
Pretty much. Well, during that time, things were a lot lax
Looser,
in
yeah.
those days.
Right,
in those
right.
days and
Yeah.
stuff. So, things were lax, and as long as the band was doing good,
Right. No trouble caused.
no trouble
yeah.
caused.
Yeah. Right.
I think my mother was more concerned because Friday she wouldn't see me till Saturday morning a lot of times.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
She must have been worried.
Yeah.
But she was okay with it otherwise.
She was okay with it.
All right. Right. Are your family, is your family religious?
Yes.
Right. Because that sometimes could be a cause of conflict.
Yes, but she was, she tolerated.
Right.
She tolerated what I was doing.
Right. So, when you did go to, you went to college, right? Or no?
What happened after draft was still on and wasn't quite over yet.
Okay.
And of course, being on the band, and I decided I needed to get out. And I didn't. If I was going to be drafted, or if I was going to the military, I should choose my own poison.
Okay. Right.
And so I.
So what year is this?
This was in the '73.
Okay. That's funny. When did that draft end? I don't even know.
Draft pretty much ended in '74.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
So you were at the tail end of it.
Paris peace talks were
So you just
in
we're
play
about the
then.
same age. You beat me by a couple of years, I think.
And so I decided to go down to the Air Force recruiting office and take the test.
Okay.
And the recruiter called me like 2 days later. He said, "You scored really high
Wow.
in electronics."
What's the test like? Oh, Okay.
Yeah, the Air Force test was hard.
right. What do they test you on?
That was a long time ago.
Okay.
I don't remember.
That's okay.
I do know
Yeah.
that I scored very high.
It was like a long day, like an all-day test or a long
couple
test?
hours.
Oh, okay.
Couple
Yeah,
hours.
that's a long time.
And I scored high in electronics, and so I got he called me up. He said, "I have a guaranteed job for you."
Oh,
And he said, how does air traffic controller sound?"
wow.
And I said, "Sounds pretty good."
That's heavy.
Yeah.
Right.
And to the chagrin of a lot of school counselors who were part of getting me into the summer college program, they were like,
Right.
"We had everything planned out for you."
Right.
I said, "No, I need to get out of town. I need to leave."
And where did you go?
Went to San Antonio, Air Force.
Okay.
And so
And how long were you in the Air Force?
4 years.
Right.
Yeah. And I was an air traffic controller.
Wow.
And also I was a student leader.
How much? There must be a lot of training for that.
I had one of the longest training schools.
Yeah.
The electronic schools, the communication schools were some of the longer military training schools.
Right. So how long were you just air traffic controller in the
I was just an air traffic controller.
for the Air Force? But you didn't,
Just for
or when you finished your
when
4 years?
when I left the military, I was pretty much done with that.
Right.
During 1984, when Ronald Reagan fired
Yeah, I remember
all
that.
of the air traffic controllers who were part of the whole PATCO thing, I started to go back. I even went down to the airport in Columbia, South Carolina. I went to the radar facility there called the TRACON. And because I worked in radar, I didn't work in tower.
Oh, okay.
And I talked with the chief controller there.
What does that mean? You worked in radar, not the tower.
Oh, air traffic control, there's two main areas. You have the control tower, which you see
Right.
when you go to the airport.
Right.
It's tall, and these are the guys that basically handle planes that are coming in like 20 miles out.
Right.
But radar is where you sit in front of a scope that has a larger range.
I see.
Larger range. So you can see, depends upon how big your terminal space is,
Right.
you can see planes 30 miles, 40 miles out.
And you're communicating with the tower.
And we're communicating with the tower, and we're communicating with the pilots.
Oh.
And we hand those pilots we hand those airplanes over to the tower.
Oh, I see. So you're the first connection with the.
I'm the first connection.
I see.
Radar is the first connection
Right.
with an airplane coming in.
Wow, that's intense. I always thought about that job as just being. It's got to be intense. You have so much responsibility.
Very intense.
Yeah, you must be aghast. That's what's happened the last few months or whatever with that.
I don't
No comment.
I don't want to go there.
Right.
But it's crazy what's happening right now.
Yeah. Okay. So then, what'd you do after you left the military?
Came back home and worked and various jobs. And the job that I'm at now, I ended up at that company. And it's a Fortune 100 company. And working down south, I was trying to actually get to New York and to work in headquarters, but they kept telling me no. Actually,
Right.
someone even told me you're not New York material.
Wow.
And but I didn't give up. Then I started.
I look at you and say how wrong they were. You just fit right into New York because you've been
Thank
here for a
you.
while, but
Thank
still.
Yeah. I think that there was a lot of it's a lot of how can I say it? There was a lot of, I guess,
Politics.
politics,
Yeah, right.
hatred, and all that good stuff folded into
Right.
all of that.
I'm sure. It's hard to escape that anywhere, is it?
Yep, it is. It is.
So we're like a fourth of the way into the show, and so I want to make sure we start incorporating your poetry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I'll finish up with the New York thing. I did come to New York, and like I said, someone discovered me, brought me up, and I did a good job. And next thing you know, I went to Europe.
Okay.
And someone just came over from Europe and wanted to take me to Europe right away. And but my boss at the time said, no, he needs to train somebody before he goes.
Okay.
And I went to Europe after that, and I was in Europe for almost 6 years.
Wow. And also Russia.
Russia being, when I say Europe,
Okay,
I
right.
include
It's so weird.
Russia.
It's hard to think of, somehow, you don't think of Russia and Europe as the same thing, but
Yeah.
yeah. So we can talk about your experiences in Russia because you mentioned that's one of the things you'd like to talk about. But maybe you can slide a poem in there, so because people want to hear your poetry.
Okay. Let's start with something, because I travel a lot, I'm in airplanes a lot, and I wrote this piece actually on the plane.
Right.
When I heard all the bags bumping in the baggage holding area, it's like, oops, somebody's got something rattling up there. So I wrote this piece titled Cruising at High Altitude. Cruising at high altitude. Shake, shake, shake. The airplane shakes as it lifts off from the steamy runway. Knock, rock, and roll, bang of the luggage in the overhead compartments. I compartmentalize my shaky nerves into my own baggage claim where all my drama is stored. My airplane climbs. I lean back. I let myself feel the mild G-force press me. Press me, G-force. Press me. I relax in my G-force pressure, and I ride the climb into a blue sky adorned with pillowy clouds bearing pleasant, friendly smiles. The skies are not frowning at humans today. My airplane levels at cruising altitude. I myself level, calm, steady. My plane is high. I am as high as my plane because I left all my troubles down on the earth below. And I cruise at my mellowed altitude, and I cruise at my mellowed attitude, and for a moment in my days, I dance.
Yeah.
Thank
That's awesome. That really made me feel like I was in the plane with you.
Thank you.
Yeah. And that's a great use of time just sitting because sitting in a plane can be uncomfortable.
Most of my writing occurs not on airplanes or trains. I take the train to work
I see.
now. Every day I take the train. Even when I lived in Connecticut, I took the train to work.
Where do you live, by the way? I don't
Now I live in Upper East Side.
Okay. And you're working in...
I work in Purchase, New York. And so I take the train to White Plains.
And what do you do in Purchase?
I actually work for PepsiCo headquarters.
Okay.
In Purchase, New York.
Right. How long is it? Not that long of a commute, right?
About an hour. Actually 1 hour door to door. 1 hour.
Okay. So that gives you lots of time for reading and writing.
I write a lot of pieces on the train.
Right. So it's funny because, you know, I'm not a long-time poet, kind of new to it, but I just write like, sometimes I'll go a week or longer without writing and go, geez, I don't know if I'll ever write another one again. And then just something hits me and I write it on my phone. But are you more deliberate?
I write on the phone also.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I write on the phone also.
Yeah, my first book and my second book were all written on the phone, maybe edited on the computer. But
that's my process. I write on the phone,
right.
And then I move it from the phone to my desktop,
right? Yeah,
and I do my editing there,
right? But I mean, are you deliberate? And you say, well, I have this hour. I'm going to be commuting. I'm going to think, you know, maybe ahead of time. You think of some subjects or things you want to write about, or is it just comes to you, or what's your process?
It's in the moment.
Right.
Cruising at the high altitude, when I heard the luggage bang in the compartments where you put your luggage,
right.
Boom.
And just something came to you. Yeah.
I'm like cruising at
That's kind of how I am too. Something, it could be a phrase, a sentence.
It's an experience. Something something I see, something I hear.
Exactly. Me too. It could be in a song or a movie or on the streets. You know.
It's usually something I see or something I hear.
Right. Because there are some poets that, well, I guess especially if you're doing prose, you have to be more disciplined. But there are some poets that say they're going to write and they sit and write. I can't. I have to have the idea has to come to me.
There are times, and I'll read another one later, titled Graffiti.
Right.
I was on the train on the way to work, and I said to myself, I'm kind of tapped out on writing. I don't have anything I would like to write, but I'm kind of tapped out, so I want to write. Mm-hmm. And I started looking out the window.
Right.
Because that's what I do. I look for things. I listen.
Right.
And I noticed graffiti on the buildings. I noticed graffiti on railroad cars. And I'm like, graffiti. Then I used my phone. I have dictionaries on my phone. I looked up the word graffiti to find out where does the word graffiti really come from.
You know, I never thought to put a dictionary on my phone. That's a good idea.
There are some that are embedded on your phones already. You don't even have to
look for it. Yeah.
And I really like to dig down into the root of a word where it comes from.
Right.
And I found that graffiti, it relates to scratch, to scratch.
Huh.
And I'm like,
what's the root? Like what?
It's Italian.
Italian.
It's Italian.
It makes sense. It sounds like it. Yeah.
And I'm like, whoa.
When was it first used? You know, any idea?
I'm sorry?
When was that term first used?
Oh, I didn't go that deep.
Okay.
Because once I saw the meaning, I started writing.
Right.
Itchy are the walls.
Wow.
Was the first line.
I like that. Cool. Are you going to read that at some point?
I can read it now.
Oh, I might as well. You got me interested in that one. Are you into graffiti art?
I'm not into it, but again, I looked out the window and I saw graffiti, and it just sparked an interest.
Right.
Graffiti, origin mid-19th century, from the Italian graffio, which means to scratch. And that's from the New Oxford American Dictionary. Okay. Itchy is that wall as it awaits graffio. The graffitist, urban artist, revolutionary, pushing back against norms, challenging tradition, fostering change. Revisionist of the streets, you share your thoughts with us. The concrete, the steel, the asphalt, the bridges long, the freight cars wide, the skylines tall. Your hieroglyphs tell a story. Your symbols represent notes scratched on sheet music. Your clefs set pitch to song. Itchy are the walls that await the graffio of the graffitist.
That's amazing. You got all that from just looking out the window and seeing the graffiti. Yeah. Nice. I dig that. By the way,
thank you.
This is completely off the subject. We'll get back to you and poetry and everything, but you a lot of times your posts that I see are things you're cooking, and so you seem to like cooking, and it always looks so good and makes me hungry. And this just recently came up in my memories on Facebook, and it made me think of you because it seems like you like fried fish.
I love fried fish.
Any idea what that is?
Well, I see the pasta in the middle, like
Right.
fettuccine.
Yeah,
and
but I
see-
mean the fish on the outside. It's fried blowfish.
Wow.
I made that once. I went to a fish.
I've never seen blowfish cooked before.
Yeah. Neither had I, but I went to. There's a fish market at near my house on Sundays. Not a fish market. What do you call it? A market. And then there was there's a fishmonger there, and he had blowfish. I'm like, what the hell? And I asked him, like, what are you supposed to do with it? And, he made I don't know if he made a suggestion or I looked it up, but I bought it. And that's one of the tastiest things I've ever cooked or ate. It was so good. I don't think it's easy. You don't see it around that much.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah.
I've heard of it.
Right.
I've heard of it, but I've never seen it cooked.
Right. And
Amazing.
It came up on my feed, and I was like, oh, I got to show that to you.
Thank you for showing that to me.
Yeah.
Yes, I do. I like, I post things about cooking. I like the preparation of things.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times I won't show the cooked meal. I
Right.
just show the preparation with the different ingredients.
Right.
I like spreading out the different
Yeah,
ingredients in little
Sure.
bowls.
It's like telling a story.
It's like telling a story.
Right. And but when you cook, are you cooking things like you grew up with from your mother, your grandmother, your father, or is it just things you learn along the way as an adult?
Things I learned along the way as an adult.
Right.
I collect recipes.
Right.
Every time I see a recipe, but on my phone, because I post things about food. Now my Facebook feed,
Right.
I get all types of recipes.
Do people ask you to cook for them?
Are
Are you known as the guy? The guy?
sometimes people have said, "Oh, you ought to bring me a meal."
Yeah, right.
sometime."
It's people say. I was a professional chef for maybe 20 years.
Oh, see, that's something I don't think I could be.
Yeah, it's really hard work.
It's really hard
It
work.
can make you not like cooking too.
I enjoy cooking,
Right,
but
it's a different thing.
there's
I
a
loved
whole-
cooking, and then I said, you know what? I was in between. It was later in life, and I was like, my jobs were all music related because I was a drummer and I studied in college, and so I did a lot of jobs related to music, and I was in bands. And then I was like, I need a change. The last job I had was winding down, or didn't feel the same anymore. I said, I love cooking. I mean, really love it. So I'm going to go to culinary school. The only thing I can say is don't do it at the age of 45. It's too old to be a professional chef.
it requires a lot.
Yeah.
It requires a lot.
It's a lot of physical labor. Yeah.
And I'm not. My passion for cooking is on the weekend.
Uh-huh.
I'm not cooking for a crowd of people.
Right.
I'm only cooking for a small group,
Right.
myself or family.
Right.
And I take my time, and if it takes all day
Yeah,
on a
don't matter.
Saturday
Right, yeah,
for
it's
me
your
to
thing to
chop
do.
and cut,
Right. Yeah.
I'm good.
Right,
I
there's
got
no
my
rush. Yeah.
I got my music playing.
Oh yeah. What music do you like to play when you're cooking?
I like jazz.
Okay.
I'm a big jazz fan,
Right.
and jazz fusion mostly,
Oh, okay.
and mostly
Weather Report and
Weather Report,
Chick Corea and all that kind
Chick
of
Corea.
stuff.
Oh yeah. Those are some of my favorite artists. Yeah.
So I can get off the topic, and I just did. But let's get back to you as a writer. Maybe it's a good point for you to put something else out there on the show here.
Let's do the title piece of my new book.
Oh, cool.
I wrote this. I hang out at a place in New York City called the Milton, named after John Milton,
Okay.
the poet.
Right.
And sometimes I go there early.
Where's this?
This is on the Upper East Side.
Okay.
And sometimes when I'm there on jazz nights.
All right.
They have jazz nights on Monday nights. And
This is your neighborhood?
it's like 2 blocks from where I
That's
live.
great. Yeah.
And so before the show, I was sitting in front of a bowl of beautiful fruit, what the bartenders use.
Right.
And I started writing how beautiful the fruit is.
Right.
And I looked at the writing. I said, this is so boring.
Right.
I said, what if I call it Bad Fruit?
Right. Well, bad fruit, man. That's it. Yeah.
And within 15 minutes before the band came on, I was done.
Yeah, there's so many directions you can go with that.
Yeah. I didn't know where I was going. I just said, let's start with the term Bad Fruit and let's see where it goes.
Right.
And I finished it up, and the band started playing. A couple of other writers hang out at the same place.
I see.
And I showed one of them.
Right. Sounds like a great place to go.
And she said, like, you should change the last line here. That one's kind of clunky, but otherwise it looks good. And I did. Went home. I looked at the last line. I said, yeah, she's right up. And I made some changes.
Right.
And I sent it off to a publisher. I think I sent it to Last Leaves. Last Leaves is a publisher.
Okay.
And they published it in one of their quarterly journals. But yeah, I wrote Bad Fruit.
So how long ago was this?
This was a couple of years ago.
Okay. Is this the first poem?
In the new book?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's what's jettisoned the book itself, or no? Or just
great question. I had every year I look at what I've written.
Right.
And I ask myself, is there a book in here?
Right.
And I did that in 2023, and no, the answer was no. There's just no book here.
Right.
2024, I looked at all the collection that I did from 2023 and 2024, and I said, okay, I may have a book here.
All right.
And so I have a process where I print out, whenever I do my collection, I always do a table of contents, and I go through the table of contents and I make notes and categorize and classify each piece.
Wow, okay.
And then I go through it again and I say, okay, if I'm going to do a book, what am I going to keep and what I'm going to strike out?
Right.
And I do that process of elimination.
Right.
And then I look at the collection and I say, okay, what's the title?
Right.
And I looked at the flow. When I looked at my notes that I made for each poem, I said, the title of this book will be Bad Fruit.
Nice. Okay.
Because everything is connected to it.
Right. And in what way?
It's very social.
Okay.
A lot of social pieces are in there, and everything is connected to it in that way because I do speak about some of society's ills.
I see.
But it's not blunt and in your face. It's more in between the lines.
Okay, cool.
And then there are some pieces that are where I soften things up, where I just kind of say, let's just have fun,
right?
Too. So
yeah, you can't. You don't want to hit people constantly.
Yeah. You have to mix and sprinkle.
Yeah, I agree.
Softer pieces into a collection.
Right.
But it's still collect. It's still. I think everything is still connected.
Right. Cool. Well, let's hear Bad Fruit.
Bad fruit, shriveled orange skins, black and blue limes, purple apples, black pears, rotted bananas, saddened grapes, withered figs. Bad fruit, served daily at breakfast, at lunch, at dinner, at midnight during the late night snacking fridge raid. Lately, all we've been eating is bad fruit. We spread the table in the morning with proper etiquette. We hold our knives and our forks. We bite, we chew, we swallow. Later, our guts rebel. We hug stools. Violently, we puke. We become plague. We become pestilence. We become pandemic. We become epidemic. Slowly, we become bad fruit.
Nice.
Thank you.
Yeah. Cool.
One story about this book. I sent it the day after the November election.
Okay.
This is 2 years of work.
Right.
All this work was done before the election happened. And the publisher, Gnashing Teeth Press, within 24 hours, they sent me a note back. She said I couldn't stop reading it.
Nice. So they're the publisher?
They're the publisher.
All right. That's good for you, man. Yeah.
And so, So I really have a lot of high hopes for this one. I think people will love it.
Yeah, I'm sure they will. That's a great start.
Cruising at high altitude, which I read earlier, this is also in Bad Fruit.
Okay.
This is an example of where I soften things up
right.
from time to time.
Right.
Graffiti is also in it.
Okay, those are the three great ones then. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you said you love jazz. Does jazz inspire you?
Yes, it does.
Yeah, because there's a connection, I think.
There is.
Right, there's improvisation, but there's also a foundation, right?
Yes, both.
In music and I think in poetry too. No?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, sometimes when I'm reading a piece, people will say, well, wait a minute, Jerry, it sounded longer on stage than it is on the page.
Right.
And I say, well, there's a difference between what's...
Do you hear music when you write or when you read?
I don't hear music. I love change-ups.
Because it sounds, I mean, you definitely have a rhythm going in your writing. The one pieces that you just read, there's definitely musicality to me. I hear it,
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Though even when I used to sing, one thing I was very good at was timing and change-ups.
Right.
I love a good jazz song, or any song. There's some rock and roll songs that I love that do the same thing, where they change direction right in the middle of the song,
Right.
and then they come back to the main line where they started from.
Right.
And I love that type of flow. I
Right.
love that type of motion.
Right. Certainly, James Brown was a killer at that.
James Brown was
salsa,
a killer at that.
60s salsa music and this kind of stuff.
Speaking of favorite songsters, favorite bands, Sly Stone.
Yeah, God,
was my favorite.
Yeah.
He was
yeah.
my favorite.
I'm with you on that. He's the greatest.
My mother turned me on the Sly Stone.
Right.
And she bought this album and she said,
Right.
check this out.
Right.
And
love that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you see the documentary?
Oh, yes, I did.
Yeah.
I've got to watch it again.
Right. Me too. How about Summer of Soul?
I watched that one as well.
Yeah.
Where they did the step off the stage.
Yeah. Could you imagine to be at those shows? I mean, that was like the legends of the time.
That was the legends of the time.
Right.
If I was in New York, I would have snuck out of the house.
I just can't imagine
age.
what it was like to be there. Which is why I love the movie Blues Brothers.
I've never seen Blues Brothers. I've never seen it.
John Lee Hooker, James Brown, and Chaka Khan was in the choir. These are all, in the storyline. Cab Calloway, Ray Charles, Aretha Franklin, and of course Steve Cropper and Donald Duck Dunn from Booker T and the MGs were the band for the Blues Brothers. They were part of the band.
It's on the list.
So
it's on the list.
Yeah, I mean I
didn't know that.
Oh,
I really didn't
yeah, it's almost
when did it come out?
80s, I think.
80s.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
So it was great because it's a fun movie. It's sort of goofy, but it's also like their characters. It's fun. It's funny, but the music in it is. I don't know how you can get a better. Again, legends. I don't know if there's a better collection of music legends in a movie than that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've always been told that I should check it out.
Yeah. Do you ever think of putting your poetry to music? You know George Wallace, of course. He's really
I know
good
George.
at that.
George
He does
has
that.
always been kind of like a mentor to me.
Yeah.
In a way.
Because he does it great. I mean, he has the one that came, Plains of Poe, which is kind of like classical, almost like classical music. And he's got records with that are jazz based, and I also work with a guitarist and sometimes two guitarists. So I was a drummer. So my friend was a musician too. And when I first started going out to readings, I said, I'm going to do something. It could have music in it. And then he goes, I said, you want to put some guitar to it? And he was, thrilled to do it because we were both drummers. Now I'm doing poetry, and he was like concentrating on the guitar. I gave him a chance to use all the things he had learned. So I find that it changes how I read the poem. And then when I don't, or if I read that same poem without him, I read it differently than I would have. Since you have a connection to music, I was just wondering. You love jazz.
In the beginning, I always said no.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I think once I read at the Green Mill in Chicago, and I let the band play behind me. That just did not work out.
Okay,
a good band, now,
right,
but it did not work out.
Right, maybe not a
band.
band.
And actually, people and a lot of musicians tell me you have your own beat.
Right,
but later in my poetry life, I became amenable to it because I listened to a lot of songs where, for instance, I remember one song, one of my favorite songs, there's a solo by the bassist, there's a solo by the pianist, there's a solo by the guy playing guitar. And I'm like, oh, I could replace that guitar solo with a poem.
Oh, wow. What piece is this? Who is it?
This is a song called Lopsy Lou with Stanley Clarke.
Okay, Stanley Clarke, great bass player.
Jan Hammer, and I forget the name of the guitar player.
I remember him, yeah.
Bill Connors.
Okay.
And the drummer was,
Tony Williams?
Tony Williams.
Yeah, I guessed it.
Tony Williams, yeah.
Well, he was one of the best.
One of the best.
Yeah.
One of the best.
Yeah.
And
you don't hear his name enough anymore. Like when they talk about greatest drummers, which is stupid to say the greatest anything, but especially, it's one thing if you say the greatest basketball player because, they play against each other sometimes and they have statistics.
Right,
but music is not that. Poetry is, art is not about the greatest. It's about it's about creating.
Tony Williams was amazing.
But he was a great
drummer.
drummer. Yeah.
Yeah, I like Tony Williams. I like Lenny White. Since you're a drummer, you probably know these names.
Yeah, of course,
and
definitely.
I like Mitchum Mitchum, who played behind Hendrix.
Yeah.
And Billy Cobham I like as well.
Yeah, I saw Billy Cobham on Long Island a long time. We could talk about music forever.
Yes,
maybe I probably should have another podcast just so I can talk about music. What do you got? What are your plans? So you got plans for any future readings coming up or
New York City Poetry Festival.
Okay.
I'm going to be
with who?
I'm going to be with the Artemis Poetry Collective.
Oh, okay.
That's going to be Sunday,
right.
Governor's Island,
Nice.
July 13th.
Cool.
And I think I'm also going to be reading for another group as well. Trying to think. It hasn't been confirmed yet.
Right.
Newer Nordic Press.
Oh, okay.
I may read for them.
Sure.
And that's
Matthew
at 12.
Eupert's.
Yeah, that's at 12:30.
Right.
That's at 12:30. On the same day, July 13th.
That's a great reading. Well, you're lucky they're both on the same day.
Both on the same
Yeah.
day. Yep. And I will have a booth there. And I'll be selling my book,
Nice.
Bad Fruit, and promoting it as well.
Right. I thought about seeing if I can have a storytelling on Orchard Street reading.
That would be amazing.
Because I've interviewed about over 50 people.
Yeah.
So, but I sent out an email, but I didn't follow it up because I had some personal things outside of the poetry that I wasn't sure it would be a good time to do it. But I think next year I want to do that.
Oh yeah. Great. You going to host it, or do you need a host? If you need a host,
okay,
you can call me.
Right.
And I would love to read for you too.
Well, yeah, I'll definitely consider that. What I would love to do is have as many people as possible that have been on the show read a poem or two.
Yeah.
And I would host it, maybe just quick interview, and people would read.
Yeah.
So that's an idea. I have a lot of ideas. It's one thing having an idea and making them happen. It's a different story.
I thought about doing a stage. I used to host at the Norwalk Art Festival.
Okay.
I did that 4 years in a
Right.
row.
I can see you. I didn't get to see you as a host because I came in late to that.
Right.
Yeah.
And we rotated.
But I could tell
every week there was a different host.
Right. So why don't you hold up the books to the camera and just tell? Let me see your books here.
Okay, let's start with the first one.
Yeah.
This one is my first book published by Evening Street Press. Poets Should Not Write About Politics.
Right, okay.
That was that one won publication award, the Sinclair Poetry Prize.
Cool.
And I got a pushcart nomination up for one of the poems in that book.
And then what's the other one?
The second one is titled A Coldness.
Right.
And that one was published by Finishing Line Press.
Okay.
Yeah. And so that's a.
Are these books still available?
Poets Should Not Write About Politics will be available on Amazon only.
Okay.
Because the publisher is not putting them out on their
I
website anymore.
Okay.
A Coldness is still available on Amazon.
Okay.
And you can get it through the publisher as well.
Right. Let's talk about your socials so people can maybe find out what's the best way for people online to see what you're doing and to connect with you, which platform is the best? Instagram or,
I have a newsletter
Okay.
where I advertise poetry events, literary events, who's been nominated poet laureate
Okay.
lately,
Right. Sure.
books by different authors,
Right.
and any events I'm associated with.
And how do people get this newsletter?
jtjpoet@gmail.com. Send me a note,
Okay.
and I'll add you to the mailing
So it's an
list.
email.
And yes,
newsletter.
Yes, an email newsletter.
Okay. Got it.
You can also read it on.
Have we connected by email? I don't remember.
We have not.
Okay. Can I have a card?
Yes.
Perfect. I'll check it out. I want to get the newsletter.
I'm also on Instagram. I do a lot of posting about things on Instagram.
Sure.
And my Instagram handle is @JerryJTJO.
Right. Okay. So tell me about Russia, your experiences in Russia, because you mentioned you wanted to talk about that.
I had just finished up.
When was this?
This was 1995 when I
Wow.
was asked to go to Russia.
Wow. Okay.
Well, I was in Warsaw, Poland for 1994, and we helped build 4 brand new locations from the ground up in southern Poland.
Okay.
On the west coast of Poland, on the western border,
Right.
and on the eastern border and in the middle. So I did a city named Kielce, Opole, Rzeszów, and Lublin.
Did you enjoy your experience in Poland?
I loved my experience. Someone from Vienna flew up to Warsaw and pulled me aside, and he basically told me,
So this is a company that you
Still.
work for. It must be a pretty large company then.
PepsiCo.
Oh, you say PepsiCo.
This is all my PepsiCo.
Sorry. Of course.
Someone-
That's a pretty big. You don't get too much bigger than
When the
that.
wall came down, companies flooded the former Soviet bloc, and they built manufacturing places all over.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And I was part of that. I was a part of what they call a task force, 4 people that went in and just made things happen quickly. And somebody from Vienna flew up and they said, "Hey, I can't get anybody to go to Russia."
Right.
And he looked at me and said, "Are you interested?" I told him I might be.
Right.
So he flew me down to Vienna the following week. I knew I was going to take the job all along.
Right.
And but
What was your thinking? Like, because especially before '95, for us growing up, there was the Cold War. Russia was always thought of as the evil, dark country. Soviet Union, of course, became, all that. Was that in your mind? Like, what? How did you
process all that?
process that? Like, now I'm going to go there because '95 is a long time ago. It was, there wasn't that much
and me
going
being,
back and forth yet.
Me
was
being
it?
in the Air Force prior, many years before,
Right.
those things did go through my mind.
Am I wrong? '95 is still pretty early, and
The wall had come down in '89.
right. But I'm just thinking, for an American presence in Russia is pretty new, right?
No, during that time,
Yeah.
Western companies flooded Russia.
Right. But you're still on the ground floor, no?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Western companies, they were, at one time I made a joke. I said, "Man, I see more Americans in Russia now than ever before."
Oh, okay.
And not only Americans, but British as well, and people from Ireland as well. There were a lot of people looking to do great things that when the wall came down.
Right. A lot of people outside of Russia, or
Outside of Russia.
right. And what about how were you received by the Russians when you went?
Oh, I was from headquarters.
Right.
When I walked in the
Was
door.
it insular?
To a point.
Right.
To a point.
Right.
To a point. They were very adamant about doing their own thing, and I was sent to kind of understand why were they doing their own thing.
Like, it's a big enough company where you had your job, but where you lived, for instance, was it I'm not gonna say a company town, but when I say insular, were you among the
in St. Petersburg, I lived on a ship, on a cruise ship that was converted into a hotel. It was dry docked,
right
on the Neva River.
Uh-huh.
It was a Swiss-Russian joint venture,
right.
and so a lot of guys from the German side of Switzerland, ran the place, and I became friends with them. And They upgraded me to nice places on the boat, and that's where I was. So I was comfortable
Right.
there.
I mean, did you get to explore the cities?
Yes, so
Okay.
I got to explore St. Petersburg. Yes.
Right. And how were like? I'm just wondering what it was like. Your experience with the people.
People were fine. People
Right.
were fine.
Right.
St. Petersburg was amazing. There was one of the biggest clubs on Nevsky Prospect. That's one of the main drags in St. Petersburg. It was a guy from Ethiopia who ran one of the nicest clubs on Nevsky Prospect. We would go there and have dinner, but if you stayed till 9 o'clock, you'd have to pay the entrance fee, which was $100 at that time. And but he ran that club.
All right.
Yeah. So interesting times, and a lot of it I probably can't talk about on the on those podcasts, but interesting times.
Did you write when you were there?
I had stopped writing, but from the time, by the time I got to St. Petersburg, I knew that my writing would change.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, you're experiencing so many new things.
And I started in St. Petersburg, but I went to every city that had 1 million people in Russia. I went to, started from St. Petersburg all the way to Siberia and back.
Do you ever think about writing about your experiences there in Poland? And
I think I told you about writing fiction.
Yeah.
I am working on a piece now.
Cool.
But I'm fictionalizing it.
Yeah.
But it's going to be based on my experiences in Russia.
Are you a journal writer?
I am a journal writer. I keep my own journals.
Okay.
I keep my own
See,
journals as well.
I'm not, but if you do something like that, I'm sure it's so you can go back and
I can go back and look.
That's going to be a good book. Yeah.
Yes, I am working on that now.
Have you started it or just?
I have started it. I have started it. I was on vacation in Costa Rica, and I finally got a chance to sit down and just read. So I finished reading one of my favorite authors, Michael Connelly, and I was so impressed. And not only do I read for the enjoyment of reading when I'm reading his work, but I study how his technique and how his work flows.
Right.
And immediately when I finished the book, I wrote a plot.
Okay. So will this be your first attempt at fiction?
My third attempt.
Oh, okay.
And I've had a lot of coaching. I've had a lot of coaching.
Right.
A lot of people giving me
When you say
feedback.
third attempt, have you published?
Haven't had no publisher has picked it up yet.
Okay.
At this point, though, this time feels different.
Right.
Because this time, I've gotten a lot of feedback about my work and everything, but this time feels different because there's something that's changed in my attitude towards how I lay this stuff, how I lay the work out.
Right.
And so, we'll see what happens.
All right, cool. I wish you luck, and I can't wait to hear more about that. So it's tradition that I read one of my poems.
Yes, let's do it.
So I went to, was it last Saturday, I guess? I did a poetry reading at the Lower East Side Arts Festival on 10th Street.
Yes, yeah.
And on my way home, I wrote a poem. Again, kind of like you, I got inspired. Something about I was wearing a hat. I don't know if I saw someone else wearing a hat, but I also saw somebody selling clothes on a rack, and just thinking about what the life is like there in the East Village and what it was like back in the day. Because I've been in New York City since like 1980, so my experience there inspired this. It's called East Village Life. I told myself it didn't matter that the hat didn't fit. It could sit on my head skewed to one side. Danny bought it for me the day before he committed suicide. We were hanging out at a street fair down on 10th Street and Avenue A, our hood a long, long time. It was on a rack with other people's old clothes. I moved down there in the 80s trying to find my way out of suburban dullness. He came a few years later from a stint in Desert Storm. He liked the noise. It was louder than nightmares. We hung out in Tompkins Square amongst the punks, the drunks, drug dealers, and anarchists. We passed around whatever we could afford, from playing songs filled with scorn, open guitar case filled with mostly coins. I eventually found my way out, leaving my addictions behind. Danny's demons took him down by the riverside, and his lifeless body drifted slowly uptown. I only found out about it from posters on street lamps advertising his memorial being held in the park later that week. I didn't have the strength to go. The shame of our disconnect had taken a toll all these years. But heck, I still have the gift of a fedora with a fallen feather and a faded rust-colored band.
Yes, bravo. Nice.
Thanks. We have time for you to read another poem before we close out.
All right, I'm going to close out with The Dancer.
Cool.
A story behind this one. For some reason, after COVID, I was always melancholy.
Well, yeah, sure.
But then I said, something, I want to think about something not so melancholy.
Right.
I want to think about, let's dance.
Yeah, okay.
So I actually looked up the word dance, and I found a lot of...
I like your idea about looking up things, when you have an idea. That's great.
And I looked and I saw some French words related actually to ballet. And I'm like, oh, this is interesting. And so I started writing this piece called The Dancer. And I finished it. And this piece was also published this piece was first published by Flora Fiction. And it's also in my book.
Bad Fruit.
It is also in my book.
Bad Fruit's going to be a killer.
The Dancer. Lately, I've been dancing on all my tears without slip or fall, every plie I've bended, every entendre I've stretched, every releve I rose, every glissade I would glide, every saute I jumped, every elance I darted, every tournée I turned. My dance floor is drenched in tears, and still I dance, and still I maintain my balance. Lightning strikes, flash in my skies while thunder cracks. I dance with the lightning, and I roll to the drums of the thunder. There are no raindrops falling from the clouds, for my grief is my cloud, and my teardrops are my rainstorms. Suddenly earth stands still. I do not fall, I stand still. Then earth quakes, I'm still standing, and again I start to dance. Every plie I bend, every entendre I stretch, every releve I rise, every glissade I glide, every saute I jump, every elance I dart, every tournée I turn, and my grief plays on, and the lightning flashes on, and the thunder rolls on, and my teardrops still fall, yet I refuse to stop dancing.
Man. Nice. So you got that just from that one word and then looking it up. Have you shown that to any, you know any dancers?
I've always entertained the thought of having some ballet dancers dance while I read.
Well, yeah. Right. I'm just curious because I felt like you were in the world of dance by reading that. Like you were.
I can imagine. I mean, I'm just right there in the middle of the stage while they are doing the different moves that they do.
Man, it's going to be a really good book. Again, when's it coming out?
July 8th.
Oh, okay.
Bad Fruit.
That's
the cover.
That's a month away. Nice.
And actually,
pre-order. I have one right in front of me.
You have one right in front of you. Pre-orders start tomorrow, actually. But July 8th is the official release date.
A little Velvet Underground there, kind of, with the banana.
Yes.
Who did the artwork?
Matthew DeGroat.
Okay.
He's very good, very good. And he did 12 samples for me.
Okay. Wow, that's generous.
Yeah, well, he did 12 samples for me, and the publisher and I, we voted on our top 4, and then we chose this one.
Cool.
And he does great. Even the cover of his own books, he's done. He's been published by Finishing Line Press, and he did his own covers. So
he's a writer?
He's a writer also.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right. Any closing thoughts?
I want to thank you.
Oh, I want to thank you too
for inviting me.
Of course.
To be on this program.
I do a variety show in Brooklyn bi-monthly. So maybe we'll talk about.
Yeah. We'd love to. Love to.
Your book will be out, and it'll be a good chance for you to.
We'd love to be include. I would love to include that in the Bad Fruit tour.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. We'll definitely make that happen. Probably in September. So you've been listening to Storytelling on Orchard Street. I'm your host, Pete Salamita. Delighted to have the opportunity to speak to a great poet and a very interesting person, Jerry Johnson, whose new book, Bad Fruit, is going to be out shortly. Make sure you look for it. What else is there to say, Jerry?
Thanks to everybody that's listening. Glad to share my time with you, and very glad that Pete invited me. And look forward to maybe seeing some of you in the very near future.
A great way to end. Thank you, Jerry.